Hello and welcome back. Let's get this chapter 6 wrapped up here with simple interest. We are on page 17 in your notes. Okay, simple interest. This shouldn't be too long of a video, I hope, but it's just a little too much to try to squeeze into the last one, and I wanted this to all be on the same one. So, simple interest, basically the formula is here, P times R times T. These are multiplication, and my dots kind of wish they were higher here, but that means multiply. Again, as we learned earlier this year. Okay, to find the simple interest, okay, we're talking about money here. It might be interest you're making or interest that you're paying. The way that that's calculated, simple interest, okay, there's another type called compounding interest, which is actually better for you, but it's harder math, and that'll come in your next class. You'll run into that. But that P stands for principal. That's your investment amount. That's the investment amount, or you could think of it as the loan, whichever one it is. If we're talking about you invest money and you get interest, or you take a loan and you pay interest, that's called the principal. It's the money, the amount of money that you start with. Okay, the rate, that's the percent of interest that you either pay or receive based on the amount of money. And the third one is time. Now, this is important when we talk about time in simple interest. It's always annual time. Okay, so what that means is we're talking about years. If you're finding the simple interest of, say, 6 months, you don't say 6, you say 0.5, half of a year. Okay, so you have to keep the context of time in years, and however the problem is worded that you're trying to figure out. Okay, so it's a pretty simple formula, but there's a couple of tricky things that can happen that we're going to work through this right now. All right, let's work through these two examples and then the next slide, and then you will be done with chapter 6, and hopefully you're rocking it on the homework as well. All right, interest is equal to principal times rate times time. Here we go. What is the simple interest on a $2,500 amount invested at an interest rate of 6% for 1 year? Okay, so the principal is $2,500. Principal is that. Okay, so that's the P. Right, and they're just asking you to find the interest, so this is a pretty simple question here. The interest is equal to $2,500 at a rate of 6%. Now, the 6% rate, we have to use that decimal form, 0.06. And then the time, that's nice and easy. It's just 1 year, and it is in years. So all we have to do on this particular question is multiply those values out and get that the interest total $150. Okay, total interest is $150. There's the number 2. If you're finding the simple interest on a principal of $2,500 invested at an interest rate of 6% for 1/4 of a year. So here we'll see one kind of like I was referring to here. Well, let's go ahead and write this down here. The interest, again, the principal is $2,500. That's pretty simple. The rate is still 6%. That's 0.06. Oops, don't forget that 0. We don't want to pay 60%, that's for sure. And then 1/4 of a year, okay, 1/4 of a year, you can put 1/4 in there and use your fraction function, or if you know that 1/4 is 0.25, it just might make the inputting a little bit easier. So you input all that in there, and you will see that the interest on that particular loan is equal to $37.50. I can't write, $37.50. And there you go. Okay, so there's 1 and 2 on page 18, the very last page of your notes. And let's finish it up here. One more slide. We can do this. We can do this. All right, to pay for shipment of t-shirts, New Wave Designs borrows $8,000 at 9 3/4%. There's your rate. So there's your principal, there's your rate, and there's your time. Oops, there's your time. And you notice what happened on time? They gave it to you in days, so we're going to have to change that to years here in a little bit. And it's also a 2-part question. It says, A, find the amount of simple interest that is due, and then find the total amount that must be paid after 6 days. Okay, well, pretty simple, really. Just got to deal with that days. That's the only tricky part. Principal they tell us is $8,000. No problem right there. Also on that 9 3/4%, all right, remember here's what we got. 3/4 is 0.75. Right, make sure you convert that to decimal, 0.0975. Okay, you've got to use the decimal form when you multiply that, 0.0975. 60 days, all right, 60 days, if you just think there's 60 days out of a year, which is 365, just think of it as the fraction 60 over 365. And remember that 60, that over 365, remember that's just division. So if you want the easiest way to put that in your calculator, just put that in first, 60 divided by 365, and then multiply everything else. All right? Or you can, if you're comfortable putting in the fraction like I taught you earlier, hopefully, just put in 60, use that A, B over C button, 365. You put all that in, and you should come out with about $128.22. I think it was an irrational number, and I rounded that off. That is the interest due. Okay, that's the answer to A. Simple interest. Part B, it says, well, what's the total amount then that has to be paid? Well, that's pretty simple. If the original loan was $8,000 and the interest was $128.22, all you have to do is add those numbers together. $8,128.22 is the amount that you would pay on that loan for the t-shirts. So that's it. You finished Chapter 6. Remember, there will not be a video for Chapter 7 because it's simple enough. You should be able to just get into my math lab and work that one out. I've never had an issue with students doing that. I've never taught that chapter after the first couple semesters. I tried to teach it and realized I was wasting my time. So when you get to Chapter 7, don't freak out. Do that one on your own. And we will pick it up with Chapter 8 after we finish up Chapter 7. Peace.